Cold Days by Griffin Rose on AO3. Episode 20. Chapter 4. Hey brother. Shouta almost lost his temper several times while Shinso talked. It took an hour for Shinso to tell him what his home life was like, and Shouta had never wanted to harm civilians more in his life. Well, civilians might be a generous term. In his eyes, they already crossed the line to criminal. When Shinso finished, that was almost worse. His current guardians are the most neglectful. Shinso could stay out as late as he wanted, and they wouldn't question it. And in Shinso's own words, seems to prefer when he wasn't home anyways. But not being home meant he didn't always get food. Being home didn't mean he always got food either. If he accidentally asked a question before dinner, they feared his quirk so much they even thought he'd never use it in front of them. They slammed the muzzle on the second his voice turned inquisitive. Well, this was all undoubtedly horrible. It didn't leave a lot of evidence. All they had to prove was Shinso's word, and the photos Shouta took of the cuts on his face. Neither were going too far, convincing his guardians of abuse, especially when they had other kids that didn't seem treated so horribly. They dotted the younger kids and pretended Shinso didn't exist. He quietly fumed about it on the way home, channeling it into cooking dinner and neatly burning the fish. Hisashi had to bodily push him away from the stove and save their food. I know you're pissed, but don't take it out on the food, Hisashi joked. I just don't understand how people can treat kids like that, Shouta said. He pulled out plates to set the table. And it's going to be messy trying to prove that they're abusive when there's little to no physical evidence. He yanked open the fridge to get out the pitcher of water. And the longer this takes, the longer Shinso suffers under them. They barely even feed him, Hisashi. Hisashi hummed. I'm surprised you didn't bring him home. I tried, Shouta admitted, slamming the fridge shut. Kid looked like any more kindness would make him explode. They already offered their home to Todoroki most of the time. He had no problem doing the same for Shinso. So, should I start looking for a bigger apartment, or will Shinso and Izuku share a room? Hisashi asked. Shouta stared at him. What? Hisashi turned off the stove and turned to face him. He's in foster care, right? Yes, that's the problem. And that means it's very easy to get him out of foster care. You already mentally adopted him weeks ago when you started training him. I did not, Shouta protest. You did so. And Izuku wouldn't mind a brother. He said this with a knowing look towards the doorway. Shouta didn't need to look to know Izuku was probably out of sight and listening in. He set the pitcher on the table with a clatter. Why don't you adopt him this time? Hisashi held his hands up. You're the one Shinso knows and trusts. That was a valid point. But still, he'd only known Shinso for a few weeks. He'd be more than happy to open his home to them, but how would Shinso feel about that? Do you even want another kid running around here? Shouta asked, because this wasn't just his decision to make. Hisashi would have to live with it too. Or, if he didn't want to, if he wanted to take this chance to move out, Shouta wouldn't blame him. He doubted Hisashi had expected to still be rooming with Shouta and his kid at this stage in their lives. It's not like Shouta needed a babysitter all the time anymore. It wouldn't bother me at all, Hisashi said. He grabbed the pan from the stove and started dishing the fish out. I know it's weird to some people that we still live together, but I'm honestly really happy with this. You think I'd be able to survive alone? Shouta snorted. Your extroverted ass would have a crisis after one day. I would, Hisashi agreed. I'm not afraid to admit I need attention on an hourly basis. They had this conversation before. Shouta had brought up the idea of Hisashi moving out a few times. He didn't want Hisashi to feel like he had to stay and help Shouta if he didn't want to. and dating or starting a family of his own was infinitely harder with their arrangement. Not that Sashi dated anyways. Their busy lives didn't leave room for romance most of the time, and Hisashi told him that he didn't care about dating. Romantic relationships had no appeal to him, and he was more happy living with his best friend. Look, Hisashi lowered his voice to a more serious tone. I'm exactly where I want to be. I'm happy helping you raise Izuku, and I'll be happy to take care of another kid too, if that's what you want. But if you want to move so the kids could each have their own room, just let me know. I think we should get a house next time. Nope, Shouta was not ready to go down that rabbit hole yet. He wasn't even committed to adopting Shinso yet. He still needed to talk to Izuku, not to mention Shinso himself. And he hadn't even officially filed the report yet. It had barely been 2 hours since Shinso told him everything. Hisashi put his hands up on either side of Shota's face. Chill. You're overthinking things. Focus on what you can do right now. For the record, Izuku piped up from his doorway. Sashi was right. I wouldn't mind, brother. Well, that was good to know, he supposed, and a much easier conversation than he expected. It wasn't even a conversation. What have we told you about eavesdropping? Izuku grinned, unrepented. Sighing, Shouta shook his head at the ceiling. I'll bring it up with Shinso tomorrow during training. Adopting Shinso would result in a faster extraction from his current home. With some of the connections Shouta has in the child services, he could probably get it pushed through within a week or two. The abuse case would take longer just because it would be a lot of he said, she said nonsense. The case would happen no matter what. Shouta wasn't going to let abusive assholes keep fostering kids. What if they took in another kid with a controversial quirk? He wasn't going to let that happen. But in the meantime, he wasn't going to let Shinso suffer. If that meant the kid moved in with him, that was an easy decision. It wasn't like when he adopted Izuku. He hadn't adopted Izuku to save him from anything. He'd done it because he'd genuinely come to care for the kid and wanted to keep him in his life. And for some reason, Izuku felt the same way. This was different. This was giving Shinso a safe home for the first time in possible years, and a family who would actually care about him and help him thrive for once. They hadn't bonded beyond a professional academic setting, even if Shouta did see a lot of himself in Shinso. It was all one big mess. He'll just have to take it one step at a time. He'll talk to Shinso tomorrow and file the report, and go from there. He waited until the end of their training before springing the idea on Shinso. I need to ask you something, he said as they gathered their stuff to head out. Shinso took a swig from his water bottle. About yesterday? Shouta nodded. We talked about you moving to a new foster family, but I was wondering how you felt about being adopted. Shinso gives a dry laugh. No one wants a kid with a villain's quirk. He frowned. You don't have a villain's quirk. Shinso shrugged. It's rare for teenagers to get adopted, regardless. We come with too many problems. The self-deprecating was frustrating. Shouta wanted to move on with the topic of conversation, but he couldn't let this slide. Your kids. All kids have specific needs unique to them. It's not your fault if adults don't understand them. Shinso shifted from foot to foot. Sure. He was not convinced. Shouta would let it go for now. A month of Hisashi and Izuku would change Shinso's mind. It's not. Besides, it makes a difference if you know the people who want to adopt you. His mouth was drying out, and he reached for his own water bottle. Asking Izuku as a kid had been easier in some ways, but it also felt just as hard. Easier because he already known what Izuku was going to say. Hard because it was a moment of vulnerability on his part, admitting he wanted it too. Yeah, I guess that would be different. Shinso allowed, eyeing him carefully over his water bottle. Who did you convince to adopt me? I would, Shouta said. If that's what you wanted, that is. Shinso's jaw dropped. You don't have to decide now. Shouta rushed. Now that he said it out loud, he was second-guessing himself. It'll take a while for the reporting to go, but I know some people who could speed it up. You barely know me, Shinso whispered. Oh, why would you? Because you need a home. Shouta said, you deserve a place where you could feel safe and happy, and you deserve a family that cares about you. I don't have to know everything about you to know you deserve that. Shinso snapped his jaw shut and rubbed at his eyes. I stopped hoping anyone would. Shouta reached out to put a hand on Shinso's shoulder, gently tugging him into a hug. He let the kid cry for a while, rubbing his back and swaying slightly. Do you like Yuki Uon? Shouta asked when he calmed down a bit. Yes, that's what we're having for dinner tonight. Want to join us? Shinso rubbed his face again. Sure, I guess. Shouta smiled and gathered the rest of his stuff. He kept a hand on Shinso's back as they walked to the car, meeting Hisashi and Izuku there. Izuku bounced up to them and immediately asked Shinso about one of the other kids in the Gen Ed class and their quirk, which was random enough to throw Shinso off guard, but simultaneously normal enough that he was able to regain the last of his composure while he answered. Shouta shared a proud smile with Hisashi. As inconvenient as their family was, they've done pretty well raising Izuku. It was part of why he felt so comfortable rushing into adopting Shinso. With Hisashi and all their friends, and even with Izuku's help, he knew that he'll be okay. After dinner, Izuku dragged Shinso into his room to work on homework. He checked that Shinso didn't need to go home, which earned an amused snort from Shinso. He kind of hated how the people taking care of Shinso didn't seem to care less. Shouta and Hisashi would be absolutely frantic if they didn't know where he was for a few hours like this. The two of them sat on Izuku's floor, textbooks spread out around them. Dumpster, the fourth, was curled up in Shinso's lap. The other cats were with Hisashi and Shouta in the living room. Can I ask you something? Shinso buried trembled fingers into Dumpster's gray hair. Of course. He licked his lips and tried again. Does Aizawa-sensei... Does he really... And Yamada-sensei? They're not together. Izuku guessed. It was the most common question people asked when they came over. Uncle Sashi offered to move in with Dad when he adopted me because Dad's patrol schedule. We all liked it, so he never left. Oh, that's generous of him. But that wasn't what I was going to ask. He rubbed the back of his neck. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Taking a deep breath, Shinso glanced at the particularly open door. Does Sensei actually want to adopt me, or does he feel obligated or something? Of course he wants to, Izuku said. If he didn't, he wouldn't have offered. Unless he was hoping I'd say no, Shinso murmured. It's not like you have an extra bed around here. Yeah, Dad and Sashi were talking about moving, or just getting bunk beds for in here, Izuku said. He could see how the lack of space might give Shinso the wrong idea. They were going to have to go out of their way to make room for him, and for someone who was used to being ignored, the idea was unfamiliar. Sure enough, Shinso gave him that slack-jawed look of surprise. It showed up entirely too often when Izuku said completely normal things about how a person should be treated. He forced himself to smile. Bunk beds would be fun, don't you think? Shinso looked around the rest of the room, clearly not convinced yet. To be fair, Izuku had two parental guardians, who had easy access to a lot of hero merch and liked to spoil him. His room was postered in posters and shelves of figurines. He had display cases full of rare merchandise, and a nest of blankets and plush heroes that didn't fit on his bed. He would probably have to pull some of it into storage to give Shinso room to decorate. We'll make it work, Izuku assured him. By the time Shinso left, he seemed on the fence about the whole thing. Izuku wasn't sure how hard to push it. If Shinso was more comfortable going into a new foster home, Izuku wanted to respect that. Still, once Shinso was gone and Izuku's homework was done, he started sorting through his stuff. Shouta came in before he left for patrol, eyeing the mess with a raised eyebrow. Izuku beamed while he rolled up an old poster. I'm making room so Shinso can see where he'll fit the next time he comes over. You'll make less room, Shouta stated, looking at the chaos spread over Izuku's floor. This is temporary, Izuku assured him. Shouta chuckled. Don't stay up too late, alright? I won't. Be safe. Always. Shouta gave him a quick hug before wishing him a good night and heading out. Izuku tried his best not to stay up too late, but he still stayed up far later than he should have. He had to, though. Finals were coming up, and he was too busy studying for next week, so he'll have to get this done ASAP, even if Shinso ultimately decided that this wasn't what he wanted. Izuku wanted to make sure he knew that he was welcome here. It was worth it when Shinso came over the next afternoon with Todoroki and Tenya. Tenya questioned the shed and spring cleaning, but Izuku shrugged it off as nonchalantly as he could. Shinso spent the whole time staring at the new, bare patches on the wall, as he did actually study. Izuku was quite pleased with himself. Okay, so the name of the chapter makes a little more sense, and so I will now no longer ship them in this fic. So I went from headcanon shipping Shinso and Izuku to now realizing that they're probably gonna get adopted by Aizawa. Also, I'm sorry, but Aizawa and Hisashi are very queer. They're very, how do I say this? How do I put that? They're dating. They're dating. In my head, they're dating. In my head, they're gay. I'm sorry, Griffin Rose. I am but a mere mortal who loves and craves Eraser Mike. Okay, but moving on. I'm no longer headcanon shipping Izuku with Shinso because that is now weird. I'll ship him with you see with Todoroki. There you go. I forgot his name for a second. But anyways, I know this one was on the shorter end. My laptop broke. So I actually wasn't able to record for like a whole fucking day. And then the next day, I was so busy with, oh my god, everything else. And although my laptop was fixed and stuff, it was still having some issues here and there and stuff like that. So I wasn't able to record for like 2 days. So I need to start recording a bit more. Not to mention, I'm going on a vacation, for like 2 to 3 days, because I'm gonna go visit my uncle. So I need to pack it up. I need to start recording a lot more. So hopefully I'll be able to record a lot more and I won't have to take a break. Fingers crossed. I really hope I don't have to. So yeah. And New Year's coming soon, and my New Year's my New Year's wish and goal is to not have to take breaks at all. In the sense of breaks in posting videos. Like, I could take breaks because I have a reserve of videos already up and ready. You get what I mean? So I'm trying to get the reserve up and running again because it kind of faltered a bit after my laptop got broken, and it was a whole hassle and stuff like that. Plus I've been busy, but I'm slowly building it up. So that's why this one's a bit shorter than usual, because I realized that it is 31 minutes for the rest of this chapter, and unless I want one video to be 31 minutes, I could split it up in half so it be 15-15, and 15 is not that low. It's lower than I would want, but it's not that low. 15 is like my cutoff. Like, it has to be the very least more than 15, but I strive for 18, 19, or 20. So yeah. Anyways, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.